Hit subscribe to the DIY Writer to support your hardworking authors and also lessen your chances of ending up as a victim in their next book. Join me at the first annual Icarus Book Convention, May 8th and 9th. This conference has a great lineup of speakers, including little old me, talking about podcasts, vlogs, and other neat author stuff. Go to Icarus, IQARUS Book Con, CON.com for more information. Hope to see you there. This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast. Have you ever heard of Paolo Danese? Is that right? No.
That's right.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, you did it.
I'm telling you, he's teaching me a little Italian here. It's great. I just learned how to pronounce open vowels, which is very hard for somebody from Wisconsin. Anyway. How are you doing today, Paolo?
I'm good, thank you. It's 11 p.m. in Singapore, but we had another lovely day. It's summer, 12 months a year in Singapore, so not too bad.
Awesome. So you have a book that just came out in English. So you have other books that are in Italian, but this one is just released in English, and it's The Path of the Guardian, Portal Wars Book 1.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it, man?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Path of the Guardian. So it was a long time in the works for me. I started writing fiction when I was 17 years old back in Italy, when I was still living in Italy. So I wrote my first book, published there around 23, 24. I moved abroad when I was around the same age, 18, 19. So ever since, I've been thinking about making the switch to English fiction. I mostly read English fiction. I've only read English fiction for the past 15 years. So that's kind of been the natural end point for me, or starting point if you want. And so, Path of the Guardian basically is a kind of a hybrid project, is partially a translation of my first novel, but it's also its own thing, its own project. It required obviously a very different approach. I wrote the first book when I was not even 20. So I'm publishing this in English now when I'm 36. So my mindset is different and my writing is different. So it was very, very interesting, to kind of rework the entire novel from a new angle and just get it to a place that, the editors were happy, and obviously English speaking editors and all that. So finally reached the finish line on that one. And yes, it's the first book in I think it's a trilogy. I still think it's a trilogy. I'm already, so the second book is, already kind of halfway there, but we'll see if it's 3 or 4. I'm keeping myself open-minded about that, but it should be a trilogy. An epic fantasy trilogy.
Okay. So what can you tell us about the book? Give us the plot.
Sure. It's, as any kind of opening salvo in a big epic fantasy trilogy, I wanted to kind of start in a place that an audience could kind of start making its way inside this completely fictional, fantasy universe. So this first book in particular follows the adventures and tragedies around the life of this young man who gets his life basically completely destroyed by the emissaries of a usurper king of his kingdom, which is an island kingdom, part of a much bigger empire. But the empire doesn't come into play in the first book. So the first book just follows the vicissitudes of this protagonist, this guy called Boren, and the people he meets and the places he goes within the kingdom that he was raised in, but meeting people and seeing things that he didn't think were possible. So basically the reality that he knew kind of crumbles pretty quickly, and kind of the reader goes along for the same journey in kind of at the same time learning about this fantasy universe and feeling bad for all the crazy, terrible stuff that happens to this guy. And yeah, so the first book is very much about getting the lay of the land of this fantasy universe, following the protagonist and his allies. He starts gathering allies from different places, kind of mercenaries, priests, vagabonds. So quite a diverse set of characters that I wanted to have alongside him. He himself begins as this kind of young man from a relatively noble family in this kingdom, but not a extremely important one. But things get messier and messier as things go along, and kind of more and more important kind of figures start appearing in the novel, and it takes him to some very, very strange places, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but the ending of the novel wants to be kind of the conclusion of his journey in this novel, but also obviously the kind of the transition point for everything else that happens then in the following books. So there's kind of that balance to be found if possible.
Cool. The one thing that I find very interesting, your story sounds great, but there's a how do I want to say it? There's a lot of people that, especially over here, that just have an English version of their book. They're like, well, getting it translated and putting it into the German market or the French market, or something like that. They get very interested in doing those types of things when they think they've exhausted the English speaking market. And you've done the exact opposite. You've taken this from Italian and put it into English to expand your market. What can you say about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it wasn't even just about the market. Absolutely, the English market is way, way wider and deeper and more keen on fantasy in particular than the Italian market is. So that was definitely a consideration, but it was also much more personal. So I, as I said, I left Italy very early. My professional career as a journalist has been in the English language, working out of Hong Kong. In the financial news segment. So English has become kind of the medium for me to express myself in kind of everyday life, in writing, editing as well. So there was definitely that component as well. Strictly around the process and the thinking of the translation, it's I guess it's probably very natural for someone from a smaller market wanting to go to a bigger market. Looking at English would be natural, just as maybe from an English point of view would be to go to the Chinese market or something like that, which remains very complicated. It's always complicated, so I guess that's the baseline. The effort that goes into translations is massive, and I did test a basic translation of my novel before, and it wasn't up to the standards that I wanted it to be. So I decided that a much better thing to do for me as an author who wants to write in English in the future, more and more, obviously, more books, was to really kind of go back to the drawing board and start from scratch, from chapter, from the prologue, and really look at it as a fresh writing project that I was approaching. So in that way, it was even more interesting because it wasn't just about translating, line by line. The story is obviously largely similar, but the way the story is told, I really wanted to do this as its own book, which was much more interesting. I really struggled with the translation process before because translating a book that you've already written and edited 10, 15 times, whatever it is, how many drafts you go through, it wasn't nearly as exciting for me as looking at a book that I wrote more than 10 years ago and treating it with kind of a fresh pair of eyes and kind of starting over.
So, and I can believe that's complicated because I truly believe in my heart that English is kind of a dumb language. I mean, we have, the British English, and then we have the, American English, and then you have, several different dialects of English within our own country even. And, some things that may make sense to a Midwesterner or a Southerner look at it and go, what are you talking about, boy? And there's a lot of things that, Southerners, say it's like, is that English? And it's like, well, yeah, hell yeah, it is, boy. Just weird things like that. I know a lot of people that live in other countries that when they speak English, they're like, it was a little hard to learn English just because there's so many different just because the language isn't necessarily logical like other languages. It's kind of a bastardized version of Latin, and then bastardized again by us over here in America. So that's got to be tough.
There definitely needs to be a love of the language if you're willing to embrace it as a creative writing medium, and that was definitely there for me. I think it was love at first sight, so to speak. When I moved to Canada at 17 years old, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to a boarding school there, and that was kind of my first approach to English in a kind of everyday context. Living in British Columbia, those lovely locales of.
Did you know any English Pacific. When you moved there? Or?
Pretty much none. No, the teaching of English in Italy was very poor. So when I arrived there, I was kind of really fresh off the boat type person in a completely English speaking school. So the first 3 months were really tough, but I quickly became very fascinated with the language. Words and all, I guess, there are its illogical bits, but compared to a kind of more Romance language like Italian, it's a way more straightforward language in its structures, and there is an efficiency to it in conveying information that some of the Southern European languages don't have. And the more I got to explore and learn and read fiction and nonfiction and study and all that, it just really, really grew on me. And obviously my social circles became more and more internationalized. So keeping a relationship with people speaking English, that obviously helps keeping into your everyday life. Up to the point where I studied in London for a while, then I moved to Hong Kong. So it just became more and more part of not just my interest and my linguistic abilities, but just part of who I am, and that kind of drove my desire to actually use it from a fiction angle, and really start writing in English, which I did as a journalist first in writing news, but obviously that's a very different kettle of fish. So and then slowly after kids and getting married and all the other things that happen to lots of us, eventually finally getting to the place where I was like, okay, probably feel comfortable enough now that kind of tackling something like an entire novel in English feels somewhat doable. It's always a crazy challenge, but it felt somewhat doable.
Yeah. Well, it should be doable considering some of your other, should we say, hobbies or interests, or, the maniacal things that you get into, because you also are co-founder for a company called WordRevo,
Yes.
which is it looks like it's a self-publishing and a translation service for books.
Yeah. So. We like to call it something like a strange beast. Basically, the idea is not to be necessarily a translation agency or a publisher. As is, our idea is really to work with authors or approach authors that are keen to make that transition to other languages, and kind of provide them with whatever they need. It's actually targeting people that want to self-publish more than being published, because we don't have the presumption. We're kind of a startup still. We only launched between 6 and 9 months ago, so not that long. So we don't really want to step on the toes of traditional publishers, also because frankly we don't really see the value in doing that. So the idea was to bring together expertise in different areas, anything from the covers to the translators to the editors, things like that, and we source them from many different places and many different markets depending on the needs of individual authors, and just kind of provide this kind of tailored one-stop shop for getting the book translated and published in a language that they choose. And so far it's been kind of a mix of initiatives that we've had with the company. We've worked with some authors in Italy. We are working with some others in Italy. We're working with one author in Hong Kong. We've run a very, very big literary competition back in Italy for Italian writers to submit short stories, and we've published a collection of those short stories in Italian and English.
Okay.
So that has been kind of the big achievement for now for our business launch. This wonderful, really, really wonderful collection called WordRevo Tales, World Without Borders, and so. We published it now a couple of months back. Yeah, we've had very, very good reception on that, and it was a very fascinating experience to work with so many authors on a single project, compiling those short stories and then getting them professionally translated into English. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I always worry about when you're trying to translate something, it's not like you can just go into Google Translate and write a sentence and have it translated into another language, because it usually doesn't make any sense. Also, I've heard from other people, like those apps that you can get on your phones where you speak into it, and it gives you just enough to where you might be able to get the information you need in a foreign country, but everybody's laughing at you because you sound like an idiot.
Sure. Yes.
And that would be a concern for a lot of people getting their books translated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think the field of translation, well, I would come at this from two angles. There is definitely some inherent complexities, obviously, when you go from one culture to another, not just from one language, but obviously from one culture to another. You kind of hinted at that, talking about dialects and just phrases and idioms that people use that are just found in one place but not others. So who are you targeting with your translation? That's obviously one thing. I think there is such a thing nowadays as, at least for English, an international kind of English reading market. And I guess in that kind of broader sense, I think there is maybe more flexibility because people might be more open-minded at reading, a Vietnamese author translated into English, or, a Chinese or a science fiction author into English or something like that. So I think the readers have grown more accustomed to reading maybe things that don't necessarily maybe blend with their everyday language, but something that might still be very interesting to read. So I think there is that potential. Another thing I would mention around the translators, obviously, is that until now has been a bit of an ivory tower, and that was one of the reasons why we launched WordRevo. The traditional costs and processes involved with getting, especially fiction, translated were exorbitant, but there is expertise out there. There is lots of people with lots of experience in translation that you can source and work with to do very good work nowadays. So I think that opens doors that just weren't open before. So I think now there's a lot more opportunities around what you were saying in terms of getting actually those books translated in different languages, thanks to the internet, thanks to different kinds of platforms, thanks to the various social networks and channels that we can use to communicate, to find the right people. So that I think the game could change, and that's kind of what we were aspiring when we launched WordRevo. And even personally, obviously, in this process, I did obviously rely on translators for the early stages of the project. In the specific case of Path of the Guardian, it wasn't enough for me because I initially wrote this book in Italian so many years ago that even with a decent translation, there was just a lot that I felt like changing. And also because I live in a fully bilingual kind of life. So my expectations from an English book would have been different than someone, say, who doesn't speak English, based in Italy, who just wants to get their books out in English. So there was that component that was very big for me, just my own expectations and my own kind of standards and things like that. So taste, if you want. So that played a big part.
I remember getting into an argument with somebody from, I think it was the Netherlands, about the word trunk. I was talking about a car and throwing somebody in a trunk because you wanted to take them someplace, and they could not figure out what the hell a trunk was,
Right.
It's like, that's, the part in the back where the spare tire is. And why would you throw anybody in there? Because you don't want it. Okay. I was just trying to explain things, because it's very common over here just to, grab somebody off the street and throw them in the trunk. Right. Not really. But that, I thought that was kind of a funny conversation, but it was, they're really trying to figure out what the word trunk was, in relation to a car. The other thing that I found really funny was when I moved here to Wisconsin, we talked about that a little bit. There's a word that they use for a water fountain here called a bubbler.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that was very confusing. I mean,
bubbler.
Before the days of COVID, you actually walked up to a water fountain and got a drink, but it's over there by the bubbler. What the hell is a bubbler? That thing, the water comes out, it bubbles. Okay. No,
it is quite a cute term, I have to say.
Yeah.
Quite original. Yeah. The vocabulary, absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge topic on its own. Yeah, especially when you just refer back to the experience of writing epic fantasy. I guess it has its additional kind of set of challenges of writing in something that obviously is not a modern contemporary context, but obviously this imagined medieval context. So the language needs not only to be appropriate, but also kind of consistent and something that doesn't sound odd from anyone, from whatever the nationality is reading in English, something about a fictional medieval world. So yeah, but obviously it applies to whether you're writing,
that's
romance,
epic fantasy. That's where you get the advantages that you can just make up words and then describe what it is.
Sure, you can. Yeah, if you don't overdo it.
Yeah, mine is,
as long as you.
Well, you need, sometimes you need to put a glossary in the back and say, well, the the suppler is actually the the type of sword that's used to cleave somebody from the head down to the shoulder, and I mean, you could certainly do that, but
yeah, although I think tolerance for expansive annexes for fantasy books like in Tolkien's days, I don't think people are very keen on reading through those anymore.
I don't know. I know a lot of authors who, they put the glossary in, and then they have the the fandom pages where they have descriptions of their characters, and they do all these different things. The maps that they make for their worlds are just incredible. They draw up battle plans. They do all, I mean, they go all out, versus mine is kind of an urban fantasy to where it's like, it's a street, Yahoo, nobody really cares to see a map because it's just something you see on Google Maps or something like that. But
yeah, well, advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, that's definitely something, big draw for me to epic fantasy, the illustrations, the maps. I have included both in my first book. There is no glossary, but there are maps and illustrations. I'm a big fan of that, and I'm hoping to, in the upcoming books to expand on that, more illustrations, bigger, more beautiful maps. Absolutely. If, obviously it's an investment of its own as a self-published author, but that's definitely something that I think readers, as a reader myself, I love it. I think a lot of epic fantasy readers love it. So definitely
I think there's a certain clique that go nuts over that kind of stuff. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen comments on different groups and different boards where they're talking to a fantasy author, and they actually are talking about, okay, well, this map isn't exactly a scale because you said it's a 20-mile hike, but it looks like it's 26 miles. And it's like, oh my God, you took a ruler out and this is purely fantasy,
Yeah. Too much. Yeah. I mean, especially in a medieval setting, we can imply some degree of flexibility around the precision of hand-drawn maps.
Yeah, well, you certainly can,
no
but
satellites.
it's that level of interest that people
Yeah.
take into it that's just like, oh my God, you were like
staggering.
You were like committed to this. Cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to argue with the fans ever. Yeah. I hope I don't get into that.
I wouldn't say you don't want to argue with them, but on the other hand, you don't want to disenfranchise them from your series. I guess it'd be different, but you could certainly, set them straight on something. But like I said, if a picture doesn't match a description in the book, man, they're on it, It just, it was a rendering. His before he got his fingers cut off, or whatever.
Yeah, something to keep in mind for my upcoming books. Yeah, in case the same things return with different illustrations. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But no, it is something I think that people do really enjoy. Yeah, and it is quite specific to the genre. So genre of epic fantasy. So that's I feel happy with having the chance to play around with those things and working with different illustrators. Just as around the cover, this is probably the fourth iteration or something like that. So it's I guess it's all part of the journey of getting the book out.
Yeah. And like I said, that extra stuff, I think a lot of people think is so cool, but I think it really, I think it's really unique to epic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see romance authors showing a map to their their sex haven or whatever it is they're going to.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, the town square where they had their first date. Here it was right here. Yeah. You don't see that, but epic fantasy, they get into such detail. And the other thing I think is funny is the size of the book. A lot of epic fantasy people that I talk to, it's like, well, I had to stop at 270,000 words. And it's like, my God, that's like 5 books.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Something that, I am kind of experiencing myself. I'm a big lover of epic fantasy. I'm also a big believer in balance, and I think especially today, especially for if you're a traditionally published author, there are probably stricter kind of parameters they want to adhere to because of the way the market has been traditionally. But I think for self-published author, this whole thing around word counts, I think there will be more and more flexibility around that. I think people might probably be more keen on 120,000 chunk at the time rather than getting their 200,000 monster downloaded.
I think you're starting to see that happening in all genres, to where it's I think somewhere between 55 and let's say 120 is really kind of the sweet spot. And
sure,
from what I hear, and I don't know, mine are all between 55 and 65, but from what I hear, a lot of epic fantasy folks are saying, I wrote something, it was 190,000 words, and it didn't sell as good as the prequel, which was 120,000 words. And so they take their next book and they kind of split it up more, and it seems like people are more apt to pick up something that doesn't look like it's going to take them 3 months to read, you know.
Yeah. And I think it goes even beyond, just the reading time. I think there is something to be said about I think it requires a degree of confidence in wanting to structure a 200,000 words novel in a way that can be consistently engaging throughout. Obviously, in the world of self-publishing, the scissors are not as probably as heavy as the ones they use in traditional publishing, and people are freer to kind of make the book that they want and publish it the way that they want, at the length that they like. But at the same time, I think it's important to, as the author, to kind of try and I guess get the story across with the characters you want and with the descriptions that you want and all of that, but in a way that can remain as engaging as possible. And frankly, over 200,000 words, I'm sure there are masters of the craft, G.R.R. Martin, Brandon Sanderson, but that doesn't mean that everybody can do it, and it doesn't mean that everybody should do it because the masters are doing it. So that part, I think people should really kind of, both see what's happening in the market and what the masters are doing, also seeing what the audience wants, and also then find their balance in the way that they structure their work. So for me, it's definitely a work in progress. My first novel is around 90. My second one probably be around the 120 mark. Just to give you an example, my third novel in Italian, which is now in draft stage and is kind of the conclusion of the trilogy, is 160. So I'm starting to go into that direction, but I don't know whether it's going to be one book or not. So by the time I'm finished, if it's 200,000, I would probably consider splitting it up. Yeah.
Well, I think you get more money per word.
Sure, there is that consideration. Yeah.
I mean, as far as, if you have 3 books versus 4 books, I mean, there's a minimum price you have to sell your book for to make money, and, 4 is a bigger number than 3,
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I don't know how math works over there in Singapore, but, over here, no, just kidding.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a good point. And I would say I agree also, because I think people would love to, get things coming out in a more, perhaps with a more regular schedule, so to speak. I think people nowadays are already very accustomed to, Netflix and binging and things like that. So yes, you can binge and get that 200,000 words book downloaded and read it over a year, or you might just get smaller chunks and have access to them on a more regular schedule or something like that.
You get some of those whale readers that just consume series after series after series, and it doesn't seem like you can ever satisfy their hunger for words. I mean, it's always, is there another book to this? Is there another, and you get these emails from them. It's like, there's another series coming out that, okay, is it going to be out next week? No. It's going to take me a little bit of time. But I mean, that anxiousness that they have is so thrilling for the author. It's like, oh my God, you loved it so much that you want another one. Okay. And then you're more apt to write one on one hand.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're, slow at releasing, sometimes you can alienate people, and they're like, yeah, I'm not, who knows what he's going to do to me this time? What emotional roller coaster do I get on? I mean, that can happen too, but
yeah, I mean, like you said, it's beautiful that people care. It's absolutely lovely, and definitely something every author should should hope for and wish for. The market is interesting, with Kindle, obviously opens up a lot of doors together with all the other ebook platforms, although obviously there are some kind of winners in that space. Audiobooks, something else, that I think a lot of people are getting going on. I'm thinking definitely very hard about that. It'll definitely be something that I would be keen to explore. But yeah, there's tons of ways to satisfy that craving for readers. Yeah, you just need to be quick enough to get books to the edited stage to satisfy that. But it's awesome in a way, just the fact that demand is out there and the platforms are there to help you spread the word. So that's really good.
Well, and you mentioned Kindle. I remember a time where it was, maybe once every other month I get to a bookstore. I mean, you'd be in the malls like, oh, look, it's Barnes and Noble. I'll go in there and, pick up a few books or whatever. And, nowadays you can basically jump on a computer and have 6-10 books to read within, just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, supply and demand have clearly kind of gone in the same direction. Yeah, true, very true.
I've got 40. I'm sorry, I have 53 books on my to be read list.
Okay.
And it's people I interview. It's like, oh, I want to read that book, or it's this, that, or the other thing. But it's you pick it up and you just start chunking them off, and it's like, I think sometimes I spend more time reading than I do actually writing. But
right.
It's just crazy. It's like, it's only it's only $2-3 to pick up a Kindle version of it.
Yeah,
my Kindle library looks much like my library behind me. That many books, times
nice
3.
And packed.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there's been a time where books have been so easily and readily accessible. That's one of the beautiful things about the market we're in, so that a self-published author can, throw out 5 or 6 books and get exposure like they've never had before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the strategies have had to become a bit more sophisticated, and all that. Probably the standards have gone up compared maybe to the early days where anything, tons of people probably made money from not so polished, Kindle books. But absolutely, the potential is there. I guess the challenge as a reader, obviously now it's the recognizing quality and reviews and all that obviously play a big part. But the sheer amount of free or nearly free books of high quality that you can get is obviously very, 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 very high. And of course, if you're willing to pay more or get paperbacks, then that expands to infinity and beyond. So it's a constant challenge. I myself kind of go between fits of intensive reading and fits of intensive writing. When those fits happen at the same time, I lose my sleep. So I tend to try and separate them to leave time for family and other things and other work. Right. But yeah, it is a challenge.
Absolutely. So you've got your writing career. You were a journalist. You're a financial journalist. You also, I think you did some promotions and marketing and stuff too, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked in PR, public relations. Yeah, still connected to finance. I was basically a PR for with a large global agency representing kind of financial institutions. But that was kind of a shortish experiment between my journalist career and my freelance career. So now I kind of consider myself primarily a freelance writer and editor, and obviously an author on the side, and hopefully that will grow in importance over the years. But I'm not super rushed. I mean, obviously I'm looking forward to publishing more books, but obviously there's other components to my life that need to be taken care of. So
sure.
So multiple things juggling now here in Singapore.
Yep. Kids will do that to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. COVID.
I want to write. Sorry, you have to go to the soccer game. Okay.
Yeah, that as well. Play dates and whatnot. My kids are still small, very young, so we're still in the play date stage. But yeah, the soccer games are coming too. But
yeah, I don't know how play dates work over there, but over here it's almost like a small wedding. You know, what are we gonna eat? What are we gonna do? I mean, everything's got to be planned.
Right.
You know, and it's like.
It's pretty relaxed over here, much more relaxed than Hong Kong, for example. Hong Kong, I think people tend to worry and stress more about things. Life in general is much more stressful in Hong Kong. It's a very high, high energy environment. Singapore is a very, compared to Hong Kong, it's a bit more relaxed.
Oh, that's nice.
So life in the tropics. So the vibe is a bit different. Luckily,
I kind of halfway expected to see you in a Hawaiian shirt.
Hawaiian shirt, yeah,
shorts, flip flops,
flip flops,
yeah.
I mean, that's totally acceptable in terms of the your outdoors outfits and all that. No one would look at you sideways, except maybe in the business district of Singapore, which, as you probably know, Singapore is a big financial center, so there's tons of banks and whatnot. But even the people in that part of town, you will hardly see suits and ties, just like maybe in Wall Street or something like that. It is definitely more relaxed. So that's nice. It's good to have that in your everyday life. So
I think life has been for me has been really funny because I strive to get into a suit, and then I spent the rest of my career trying to get the hell out of it.
It happens.
I really thought it'd be cool to wear a suit every day, and once you do it, it's like, this ain't cool. Can we go corporate casual? Can we go, now we're all working at home, so we barely wear pants.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. I saw a headline the other day saying something along the lines of our Zoom etiquette is slipping as the months go by. I think people started to make more effort in the beginning when they were more worried, about the being seen on camera. But 1 year into this, just
do a shirt on and you're okay.
Yeah. As long as you're not in the bathroom, they'll probably be all right.
Oh, there are some funny videos on running around Facebook and stuff like that of people like carrying their phone because they became so blasé and so relaxed talking to people. They're like, okay, just a minute, and you see them sit down there. There's the top of a toilet behind them, and it's like, okay, what were you saying? And just, oh my God, really?
Maybe not.
I remember it was funny and also horrifying when you'd be talking to somebody on the phone, all of a sudden you hear the toilet flush, and it's like, you've been taking a dump the entire time we've been talking. Oh my God. I mean, just weird stuff like that, or
once the boundary between the office life and your home life blurs so much, it's bound to happen.
I was talking to a guy, and he was actually doing that to me. And what was funny was this kid came into the bathroom. Dad, what are you doing? And they started having a conversation. It's like, I'm still on the phone, dude. It was semi-professional, he's also a friend, but it's just like,
sure.
Do you want to call me back? I mean, that's perfectly fine. No, I'm good. It's like, I'm glad this isn't a video call. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. There is such a thing as TMI. Yeah. Too much information.
There is. It's real. And some people, the struggle is becoming worse and worse.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think we're not out of the woods yet. So
that woods is getting thicker and thicker, isn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, worldwide, definitely. Yeah, Singapore is doing okay, but nonetheless, the situation is still very, very bad. So yeah. Anyway, maybe we want to talk about something else.
I think we want to talk about something else, because otherwise I'm going to get into it, and it's just not pretty over here.
No,
we're all going to die. No, just kidding.
My brother lives in Philadelphia, by the way, so I get the insider view on what's going on as well.
Yeah.
But but
Is
yeah.
he happy with
Anyway.
the progress?
Well, he's I guess he's happy the university is employing him still, despite the situation. He works for the university, so there. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
What I thought was funny, the university that my middle daughter goes to, was they were implementing these online classes, and before COVID, and they're like, real, you can take all these classes online and do this, that, and the other thing. And then when COVID hit, we really thought they'd be all set up and ready to go with online classes. No, not even close. No, they're advertising something they hadn't built yet, and so they had to actually build it. And basically, she got a mulligan for last semester, or spring semester last year. I'm not even sure if they really did anything other than just give everybody, passing grades, based on whatever they did, which wasn't much. It was, we had heard stories about how she was studying so hard in the dorms and everything else. And we didn't see it when she moved back home because they closed the dorms down. It's like, are you really,
And I'm working on, yeah.
Well, you kind of had to wonder when she got her grades back. They're good, but it's just like, you've now binged 19 hours of Netflix. Have you studied? Oh yeah. It's because the assignments weren't there or whatever, and it was heavily weighted on what you'd done, the work you'd done before, and blah blah blah, and, whatever. But every teacher and professor that I talk to that's also an author says that the struggle is horrible.
Yeah,
doing the online.
No one was ready.
No
one was ready.
Not even close. You'd think with the way online classes are marketed here in the US, get your degree online in 6 months, blah 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 blah, that it would have been much better, but it was horrible.
So yeah, it's definitely lots of schools didn't have the infrastructure in place. We had extended school closures back in Hong Kong as well, so even for the kids. So yeah, lots of drama around that. But yeah, we'll probably have to cope with that for a while still.
Yeah, it's great for authors though. We can write.
You're right. Yeah.
Kind of, except for the kids aren't in school, so it's not quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when they're young. But no, actually, I'll tell you. I mentioned my third novel in draft stage that I'm doing to wrap up my Italian trilogy, and I literally wrote 160,000 words in 5 weeks in May, in the middle of the closures. Oh, cool. It meant waking up at 2 a.m. every day and working until 8 or 9 until the kids woke up. But still, it worked, and I was in the zone, and it went well. So I was really pleased with that. Hopefully, I'll replicate it this year for my second English book. So We'll see.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we're kind of running up on on just about an hour here, so we should probably start closing it up. Do you have anything that you want to tell your readers, fans?
Well, I'm happy to hear from anyone who's read the book. Not just in terms of the reviews on Amazon, but I have the website. PaoloDanese.com. So that's easy enough to find for people that want to reach me. So yeah, I'll definitely have more projects coming up, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with people that love the genre and are keen to read more from me, as well as for my other initiatives around books and translations and all of that. But yeah, no, that's it really. It was lovely to have this conversations. Yeah,
no, it's been fun. It's been fun. I'm glad we met.
Yeah, same across continents. Yeah.
Well, that's the cool thing about these Zoom interviews, is that you can do them just about anywhere. It's just the time zones that sometimes kind of mess you up a little bit, but
Yeah, with US and Singapore, definitely not the best combo, but we made it. So
it's not bad.
Not bad, no, it's all good. Awesome.
No, sometimes I talk to people that are an entirely different day.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, that's that too. All right.
But all righty. Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you very much, Paolo. I appreciate the time that you give me today. This is Jeff with the DIY Writer telling you to have a great day and keep your chin up.
Cheers. Thanks, Jeff.
You
Bye-bye.
betcha.
Please hit the subscribe button. I get a bonus for every subscriber and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me please.